What's happening, everybody? This is Gayuka Musa, also known as Coach G, and I'd like to welcome you to this week's episode of The Friday Fix. Now, for today's episode, we're going to talk all about love. Specifically, how important is it to be in love? So when I think about that question, there are two distinctly different answers that come to mind for me. On one hand, it depends. But on the other hand, it's all the way important. I mean, like, damn important. So, which one of those two answers do you want to hear about today? Say what now? Right. Okay. Good idea. Check it out. So, today we're going to cover both answers. We won't make you choose. So, for the first one, it depends. Now, here's what I mean. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish with your relationship and on how you measure success. So, being in love is not necessarily the marker for a successful relationship. Successful relationships can be based on other things also. And it really depends on what the two people in the relationship make a priority, what they agree on, what's important to them. So, for example, two people might be interested in having children. That might be something of utmost importance. Or maybe it's financial matters or companionship or any number of things. But it's all up to the two people in that relationship to decide on what's important to them. So if being in love is not at the top of that list for them, in this instance, it's not important. Now, if you're interested in being in love, if that's a feeling and a type of connection that you're interested in, then I would say it's damn important. And I'm going to look at this from two different ways, kind of the left brain analytical way and the right brain emotional way. So from the left brain side, there was this study done in the 1960s, and the study, they asked a bunch of women, like a large number of women, and they said, let's say that you met a man and he met all of your requirements for a husband, but you didn't love him. Would you marry him? And in the 1960s, over 70% of the women said that yes, they would marry this man who met all of their requirements for a husband, even though they didn't love him. Now, that same study was performed more recently. And in the more recent version, again, the same question, same structure, same participants, a large number of women. And in the more recent version of the study, over 90% of the women said that no, they would not marry that man, even though he met all of their requirements for a husband, simply because they didn't love him. So that's a huge shift from over 70% who would marry him to over 90% who would not marry that man, simply because of love. Now, there was another study done by the Pew Research Center, and this one was done in 2013, I believe. And in this study, both men and women were asked what their number one reason for getting married would be. And this study included about half of the participants were already married and the other half weren't. And in both cases, regardless of what their marital status was, love was the number one reason for getting married. And it trumped out all kinds of other really great reasons, like being interested in a long-term commitment or companionship or having children or financial reasons or religious reasons. I mean, love topped the entire list. It beat out all of those things. And so when we think about love as this destination that so many people, seem to want to be in, they want to get to that place in their relationships. When we think about love as that destination, there are lots of different ways we can get to love. Sometimes when two people meet, it's kind of that, that love at first sight moment where they see each other from across the room and somehow they just know. And after that, it's on. Other folks kind of come at it maybe in a little bit more traditional way where they're dating and they start to get to know each other, and then they start to develop feelings, and then that grows into that loving place. You also have people who maybe have been friends for a long time. And they really know each other really well and they care about each other. But one day, it's like a switch gets flipped on and all of a sudden something's different. They see each other differently. There's an attraction that wasn't there before or something, and they may make their way to that loving destination again. And then you even have, of course, in some parts of the world, you still have people whose marriages are arranged, where you have relative strangers coming together to make a family, and at some point in that relationship, they can grow towards love. So there's all kinds of different ways that love can, all kinds of different scenarios that love can originate from, but ultimately it seems like most people are trying to get to that place where love is kind of the destination in their relationship. You know, there's this quote from Albert Einstein that kind of makes me giggle a little bit every time I hear it, and it says, gravitation is not responsible for people falling in love. And I love that quote. I love a lot of the stuff that Einstein says. But the thing that I like the most about that quote is it begs you to question, well, what is the reason that people fall in love? What is responsible for people falling in love? What makes falling in love and being in love number one, it's, you know, on so many of those surveys? What makes it beat out some of those other really important components to successful relationships? You know, I'm also reminded of an episode we just did, episode 9, which was the Friday Q&A episode, where we take questions from viewers like you. And one of the questions we answered in that episode was, is love an emotion, an action, or both? And when we explored that answer in that episode, we talked a lot about love being this outward expression. We talked about the ways in which you can express love to the person that you're with. But in this episode, as I really try to get to the heart of what makes being in love so important, I want to talk about love more from an inward thing. And I'll do so by kind of defining what being in love means to me, what I think it's really all about. Being in love is really all about the feeling that you experience about yourself because you're around another person. It's like being with them makes you feel so good about yourself, and that's what that in love feeling really is all about. I mean, sure, you have feelings and emotions, and you care about that other person, but it's really how you feel about yourself when you're with them that makes that so different from all of the other relationships you might have where you really care about someone. And the truth is, we really want this in all of our relationships. I mean, in our friendships and our family relationships, we want to be around people who make us feel really good about ourselves when we're around them. And not that they're, you know, hyping us up or saying different things about it, but just that being with them and having them know and understand you so well just reaffirms who you are and makes you feel so good about you. So when we think about that kind of feeling in a romantic relationship, you know, it kind of takes it to another level, because now you're experiencing connection on lots of different levels that you don't experience in some of your other relationships. I mean, you have the mental connection, the emotional connection, the physical connection, maybe a spiritual connection. And so the romantic version of these relationships just really sits way above all of the other ones. And that's why I believe love is so important. Being in love is so important in romantic relationships. So what I want you to do for this week's fix is I want you to focus on what is it about your current relationship or your past relationships. What is it about that in-love feeling that you've experienced in those relationships, and how can we distill or kind of deconstruct those moments and those experiences to get to the heart of the matter of what it is that made you feel so good about yourself in those moments? So I want you to think about the characteristics your partner exhibits, the experiences that the two of you might have shared, you know, all of those special moments. I want you to think about what it is about all of those things that really had you feeling so good about yourself. Now, I'm not trying to remove the mystery or the magic associated with being in love, but I think if we can kind of distill out what the real foundational elements of it are, you know, really deconstruct what all the key pieces are, then you can start to foster those things in your current relationship, or know more specifically what you're looking for in future relationships. So that's it for this week's fix. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, this is Coach G reminding you to free your mind so your life will follow. Take care of each other, all right?